Welcome to another episode of DD on the Spot. As always, I'm your host, Ryan Johnson. Before we get into it with our guest, well, first of all, should recognize our guest. She's on for her third time, Jonquil, coming to us all the way from Kansas City again. And like I told her before, we recorded the last one on New Year's Eve, and now this is the day before Halloween. So, next year she's probably gonna be like the day before Thanksgiving or something like that. We'll figure something out. But most importantly, she's on to just give us an update on what she's been up to, and just talk all things health and fitness. Thank you so much for coming back on.
No, it's great to be on again. Yeah, always.
Well, I ask you this every single time you come on. What is the weather like today?
Well, it is actually pretty nice. It's sunny, and a little chilly. It went from 90 to 40 pretty much in 24 hours.
That's that bipolar Midwest weather that we get basically, where it's just, yep, you just gotta deal with it. It's about similar here. Yeah, I know we were gonna maybe have a fire tonight, but I don't know if it might rain or not. But I got a lot of college football to watch after we're done talking here, so I at least got a solid day plan ahead of me. But yeah, it's been a year since we last had you on, and let's just hop right into it. What have you been up to since we last talked? Because I know last time we talked, it was still in the somewhat bad part of coronavirus, and now that things have sort of, I'm not gonna say died down, but it's gotten a little bit easier. What has this last year been like for you?
Well, it's I would call this a transitional year. Trying to sort of figure out um, where I'm going to go as an individual, and where we're going to go as a business. And I think this year is just kind of been about taking stock, and sort of looking at the future in maybe a different light. I think if we want to learn anything from the virus, it's definitely taught us to I guess rethink and take a moment and reprioritize maybe as well. So
Well, I did see at least though that you got interviewed by Brooke Walker though. That must have been really cool.
that was very cool, and it was such a surprise. And it was a great moment. And we take those moments when we can because they're short and they're few and far between. So no, it was a fun moment. Yeah. And of course she did so well in the Olympia as well. So that was awesome.
That's why I like to do these a little bit longer because I just don't want to have people come on. Oh yeah, for 5 minutes, let's just talk and give because I always love those interviews where it's like, yeah, tell us how you're feeling after you just won a show or after you just did a show where all these athletes are just basically dead on the inside, and then they're like, oh, I feel great, yeah, and then you can just see like the death in their eyes basically, and they're just like, they're just like, yeah, it's so
They're
good.
trying so hard to be positive and upbeat, and they're just they want to be done,
Oh,
and they just
even the winners, like you can just tell they're just like, just get me out of here. And like I'd feel bad as the interview because I'd be like, I know they don't want to be here. I know they don't want to. So yeah, but that's no, that's awesome. And at least you got to talk to her. And yeah, that is amazing. And what is your bodybuilding been like over this last year?
I did obviously my couple of shows, and you know, as per usual, you take whatever you can from each show, and you learn what you can, and you sort of look at your off season prep and sort of strategize on what you want to do and what you want to achieve, and so I'm just continuing to develop my physique in a way that I hope will keep me moving onwards and upwards. Baby steps, especially at this stage. This stage, there are no huge improvements at this point. So we're looking for the minutia, you know. So anything that I can improve on is good as far as I'm concerned. Yeah.
Does that get frustrating, especially like you said at this part where like it's just a slow advance? Like you can't just overnight, put on like 5 pounds, really.
No, not anymore. The longer you've been at the gains, it's a little bit like diminishing returns, so it does get frustrating. Although you appreciate the gains when you get them, you do your best to hold on to them. But you have got to become a little bit more creative, a little smarter. It's not just about going harder. It's not always about lifting heavier. You've got to sort of find ways to circumvent your body's sort of plateaus and the way it adapts, which it does, of course, over time. And the longer you lift, the more the body adapts, and you've got to find these sort of creative ways to try to shock it and surprise it again. Yeah.
I just always found that fascinating when you're trying to better your body, but the body adapts so that you can't better it as much. So the body's just telling you, like, hey, I don't want to get, like, I just want to slow things down. I've always found that so fascinating where it's like, you think in a perfect world, your body would be like, yeah, let's just chop on this train and, just get going. So I've found that to be, funny at my own end as well doing this. But what is one body part you think you've improved on the most over this last year?
Um, I have obviously I have quite a few weak body parts. Not necessarily weak meaning strength wise, just weak in how it develops
Weak
genetically.
in bodybuilding. I'm not going to say weak compared to 99.99999
Yeah,
repeating percent of the population.
that's right. It's all relative.
Yes.
Um, and so, I've been working on trying to improve my back width, and it's slow going, I have to say, but there have been improvements, and so I'm always happy to see that, even though I need to continue with that and keep developing that area. But it's kind of one of my pet peeves, and it's one of those things that it's very stubborn, and it fights me on it. So.
Hey, well, I can have you work my warehouse job where you can be loading trucks and stuff like that. Hey, give it 6 months and your back will just be,
And
just
you know what? I'm sure. I'm
absolutely
sure
shredded.
that's probably me too. Yeah. Mhm.
Go to your nearest UPS and just say, hey, for this winter or whatever, just this off season, just put me in the
We're gonna
60
be
pound.
moving boxes
Yeah.
and lifting boxes, and I'm gonna change my training. 360, and happens.
Put me in those
Yeah.
60-pound trucks where it's just the 60-pound boxes where they tell you, hey, you got an hour to do 200 of those or whatever like that. And it's like, yep, hey, let's do it. So yeah, that was really my only piece of advice for anyone who was like because that's really, I mean, that's the only thing that really, worked for me as well. But did you change your nutrition at all this last year?
Um, Really, I found you find what works, and you find um, your calorie wise, you're finding what helps you grow off season. You find your macros, you start learning how much protein you need, and how your body responds to carbs, and whether you need more carbs, less carbs, and all that kind of stuff. So once you find something that works, you kind of stick with it, or at least I do. And you make some minor changes here and there. I'm not looking to add pounds of muscle on it, as you say, anymore. I'm really looking at sort of finessing and refining. So my diet stays pretty consistent now that I found what works. You still tweak it here and there, trying to balance that with cardio, and trying to figure out, okay, how can I make sure that I maintain my muscle mass and do cardio, and all that good stuff. It's always that fine balance, but once you find what works, sometimes it's just better to stick with it, and rather than keep changing all the time and trying different things in the hope that somehow the grass is greener on the other side, because it never normally is, honestly.
What is your diet going to be looking like tomorrow night?
Um, I'm staying away from the candy because I am a carbaholic, sugaraholic, you name it. So it's best if I don't even get started, because once I get started, that's it. Yep. So do my best.
I am not an addict when it comes to anything, but yeah, once you get that candy started, I mean, that is for me at least, that is one of those where I might be waking up the next morning, weighing myself, being like, how did I put on 15 pounds last night? Really? And then you're just, yeah. So that's
You have the midnight snack, and then you have breakfast in the morning, and then you've got your, late morning snack. All right. And then, of course, you got lunch, and then you have your mid afternoon snack. So, yeah, pretty much candy all day long
Oh, for
would
me,
be
it's just
my.
not even sleeping that night. Just getting that sugar rush and just all through the night. Just literally, yeah. There's no sleep. What are you talking about? So sleep, but no.
Especially because, normally Halloween candy is bite size. So you can trick yourself into thinking that you're just, hey, it's not a whole candy bar.
The first 500 of them are not. The first 500 of them don't count. Yeah. So
But
yeah. So.
they're tiny. They're a mouthful. So anyway, but yeah, I'm actually thinking of using a coach this off season, and seeing if that will offer me some guidance and help the whole process. So that will be an interesting journey. So hopefully next time we chat, I can give you a little bit more information and feedback on that.
What are you handing out tomorrow night? Do you have a candy in particular that you like to give out?
Um, I will be honest, and full transparency. I try and keep the lights off. I'm sorry.
You're just like my mom.
Remember, I used to live in a loft, and so therefore, you know, it's not part of my lifestyle at all. And so now that I live in a house, I don't really want to start that tradition. So
Kids that live near her, buy some toilet paper,
sorry.
buy some eggs, teach this lady a lesson here, that no, I'm just kidding. But like it's yeah, my mom has just been like ever since so I've an older brother and a younger brother, and ever since we like officially grew out of it and like got into our 20s, she's like, yeah, I'm not gonna do that anymore just because it's free. But luckily the Vikings are playing, tomorrow night. So they're playing against Dallas. So we'll just be downstairs in our basement with all the lights off upstairs,
Right. I
just
mean, because
basically watching, yeah.
think about it. You're watching the game, an exciting moment, the doorbell rings, and you have to get up and walk up and miss that moment, right? Just to give kids candy. So,
Just to add some joy into children's lives. I know what a horrible thing. No, but
or,
no, but I
or more
yeah
cavities
yeah
to their teeth.
yeah. Don't be that a-hole handing out apples, everyone. It's like, come on now, you get whatever you deserve in this life if you hand out apples to kids on Halloween. But I will say one fun Halloween story that I had when I was younger. I dressed up. I think it was like might have been Freddy Krueger, but this is when I was like the last time I went trick or treating. So I was like in fifth or sixth grade or something like that, and literally, I there was a knock on the door, and I went to go answer it, and it was this little kid who was like 4 years old at the most. I forgot that I had my costume on, that I had like my mask on, everything like that. So he goes twinkle tweet, and they just screamed and ran back to his dad because he got so scared of what I was dressed up as or whatever. And I was like, yeah, that's when I learned, you can't really go all out with scared. But then we also used to do a thing where we'd have a guy up in our tree who would, like scout the people coming. And we had a pile of leaves in our front yard, and one of us would hide in the pile of leaves when people were coming, and then he would let us know ahead of time, like, oh, it's older people, so you can kind of do it, but like obviously you're not going to do it if it's like a 2-year-old like having like their first thing. So
Or a 90-year old.
well, that was a part of the whole thing that their relatives called me like we need these people to die so we can inherit the money. So like, hey, get him to do a heart attack. So it was a part of a whole scheme that I did in my youth.
Kill
That
two birds with one stone kind of thing.
hey, he died doing what he loved, being scared. So hey, but no, but I mean, obviously with this part of the year, I mean, just with the post-show blues that occur to it, has it been any change from years prior when it comes to dealing with that post-show gain that you get after the show mentally?
Um, I think um, I think for me, if I can focus on my performance and my lifts and my strength gains, that really helps offset sort of any of the weight gain that may happen. Um, and just to realize that, you have there's a reason. There's a reason why you're doing what you're doing. You're not just doing it to do it, and you're doing it strategically. I mean, I think the more strategically you can do it, and the more controlled you can be, the better. I think sometimes when we lose control and we kind of just go all out and we just let it all hang out, so to speak, um, mentally and metabolically, it affects us in more ways than one. So I think if you can do it progressively and in a controlled fashion, and then just um, keep reiterating to yourself that you're doing it with intent and that there's going to be a real true benefit to this once you start your contest season again, and then just look forward to your lifts and feeling strong again and being able to possibly push beyond what you did last time. You're always looking at somehow improving your performance as well, or I am anyway, because that's what keeps me going. If my performance never changes in the gym, that probably depresses me more than anything. And as I get older, of course, that's also a challenge that I face, with chronic injury and just the body not being able to recover as much. So if I can keep improving in the gym, then that really offsets some of that, you know, depression and blah blues feeling. if you want to look at it that
I
way.
hear you. Being 27, I mean, I'm ancient basically, and just going. No, no. I'm starting to lose that metabolism that you have in your early 20s when you can really just like eat whatever you want and like, oh yeah, go out for drinks and then go have 5 hamburgers afterwards, and then you're like, you're fine the next day. But no, it's yeah, and that's yeah. And what was your judges' feedback from this last year?
So really, just to continue to improve the X frame. Being a little taller, I'm a little longer, and so I need to put a little bit even more effort into trying to get that width at the top and width at the bottom, to make myself sort of comparable to these shorter girls. That's the problem, is when you're standing against 5'2" versus 5'9", and it's hard to compete sometimes with that nice you know little cute little package standing next to you, and you're this long package that just, yeah. So
Are you one of those people like me too who believes that like there should be a height discrepancy in this because like like if you're like 5'9" or like some of the guests I had a 6 footer on, it's like I'm sorry, but it's not the same. It's not at all. Like the amount of that it takes for a taller person to like even look anything resembling like the shorter people, like it's almost a different sport, kind of.
I mean, the effort and the volume of training, and even if it's not the weight itself, but the volume that you have to achieve in order to gain that look. And our physiques are so polar opposite, and I don't know how the judges can really be objective when they're looking at two physiques that are just polar opposite. And they're expecting this. You know, they're expecting the same things from each physique. Yet we have to do, we have to train, and we have to do things that are probably different than, the individual who's a little shorter. Now, that could just be, we could look at it saying, hey, that's your lot. You got
Yeah,
into the state.
go play
So,
basketball. Go play basketball. Don't do
exactly. Go
bodybuilding.
play basketball. Go play volleyball.
Yeah.
Hey, all's fair in love and war, kind of thing. So you could look at it that way. Say, hey, it's not my problem, right? It's certainly not the fault of the shorter girl.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
Um, so
I mean, it's like
so
yeah,
yeah,
it's not like the short people don't have to work out at all.
yeah.
It's not like they just like wake up and they're like, oh, but no, I totally get that, and it's
That
like
is just that they can curl probably a 15-pound dumbbell 10 times.
plus they got an easier
With
bench
that.
press. They don't have to go down as far.
Right, no, the pull-ups, bench press, squats. The range of movement is so much shorter, so the workload is different. But in order for my bicep to look like this person's bicep over here, I may have to curl 50s versus them curling 20s. You know what I mean? Because my muscle bellies are
Now, granted,
longer.
because your arms are so much longer, your bicep is gonna end up looking like their head, basically. Then, but it's I'm waiting for the 6 foot tall Andrea Shaw. Really, is what I'm getting down to. I mean, if that ever happened, the thing is though, with I'm not gonna say that people are like judging against people's heights, but like if that happened, I don't even know if they would win though. Just because with the taller people, it's hard. I don't know. I just think because there's so fewer, especially in the female division, there's so fewer of the like the super tall people where it's like I don't know how they would be judged fairly as opposed to because there's nothing to really compare them to. So that's
When you are one of the taller girls, the judges have a harder time because the majority of participants will be shorter. So you are the odd one out, and then they don't have a comparison, and so they're comparing you to the shorter individual. So it is nice when you do have 4, 5, 6 taller girls in your division, because I think that gives the judges a chance to then compare the taller ones together. Um, so, but I think also judges tend to prefer the shorter stature because of the look that that individual can achieve, honestly. So,
which is why I've always found it funny. Like if I ever went to one of these shows, me being 6'3", I mean, I could bounce some of these competitors like a basketball, basically, if I just went up to him and just like, oh, it's like, oh, hey. So I mean, just the amount of, I'm not gonna, well, it is an illusion, but like the amount of illusion in the sport where like they make the people that are so short look like they're so much bigger than they actually. I mean, they're huge. Let's be honest, like they're huge, but like height wise, like you just stand up. It's kind of like when people. I've heard stories about people like meeting Tom Cruise in person, and he's only like 5'5" or something like that, and they're like, oh, you're just that. Like what's so yeah, just like
Well,
with
and
social
it's
media.
really hard to think about social media too. I mean, it's really hard to know anyone's height with social media. I mean, yeah, we have no idea. I mean, short, tall,
People are shocked when they
yeah.
meet me in person. They're like, "Wow, I would have never guessed that you're that tall." And it's like, "Well, I'm sitting down, so it's kind of
And in a photo, you just can't tell unless you have someone next to you who is, you know, shorter or taller. So yeah, it's all in.
I did share a photo of me in middle school when I was literally 6'2" in middle school. So like I was that kid that like took off really, really young and was like skinny as can be. Just basically I like had problems like Osgood slaughter, everything just oh yeah, everything that could but yeah, I just found that and this is a question that I came up with like 3 podcasts ago, and it's one of those where I was like, okay, I'm gonna ask everyone this now is when it comes to posing, is there anything that you would like from men's physique or not from like well yeah just from the men's equivalent of your category posing wise, is there anything that you'd like to see more in the women's category? Is there anything that the men get to do that you would like to do in your routine?
That's an interesting question. What do you think? Um, well, the men always seem to have fun with the kind of most muscular chest pose, and it's just a kind of
But then
a
you'll have
fun
people,
thing
but then you
to
have the
do,
judges say, "Oh, that's not ladylike," and blah blah. It's
but
like,
it's
come
not
on.
ladylike. Or if we do it, we become more like female bodybuilders, so we always avoid it, or we try to do it in a way that is uber feminine. So it never quite comes out the same. But it's just a fun pose because you can kind of just let go and you know be your aggressive self, for a few seconds. So, and I mean that in the nicest way
Oh,
possible.
I get nervous whenever I see it though, because I was like, one of these times someone's gonna pop a blood vessel doing that. Really, where you just see that, and you're like, one of these days it's gonna happen, but it
I
hasn't.
know, yes, but yeah. Other than that, I think the posing is pretty well rounded.
I will say though, the hands open thing, I'm like, come on, you gotta. That's the one thing I don't get. It's like just do closed fist. I mean, it's like, and then they're like, oh, it's a feminine thing or whatever like that, and I was like,
I guess how do you? The question would be if you don't do hands open versus hands closed, how do you ensure that the posing stays more feminine in the physique division? What other
you
things
look
can
at
you?
what they're wearing on stage. They're wearing bikinis.
Of course, but so are the
No,
female
no, I
bodybuilders.
I know, I know,
So
I know.
you know what I mean? Yeah. But so I think they're just trying really hard to keep keep that separation because it's blurring already. I mean, the conditioning is changing. The girls are getting a little bigger. The figure girls are becoming more conditioned. So everything's blurring. So some things have got to help define the
Well,
category.
which I mean, because like, let's be honest, 10 years ago, you would be a bodybuilder, like a female
That's
bodybuilder, basically.
our
Yeah.
weight, absolutely. What we're coming in as far as weight, you know, pretty much is comparable to the old time female bodybuilders.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Was that hard for you though, especially with like the hands closed and the hands open to really adjust that? Because like you see people like if they ever do that in like a video or something like that, and then they put the hands like you gain just a tiny bit, unlike your bicep gets just a tiny bit bigger. Is that
Tiny,
hard?
tiny,
Yeah,
well, yeah, yeah,
just
yeah.
a teeny. Was that hard to
Absolutely.
sort of adjust to that and just like trying to get the most out of that pose because it's not an ideal pose for anyone trying to like show off, really.
Right. What they do allow is they do allow you to go from closed fist to open hand. So what happens is you'll see a lot of the girls, they'll do their double bicep pose, close, get that maximum contraction, and then open up. So,
At least there's that then, because I was yeah. But there's and did you change up your posing routine at all this year from last year? Did you add new things?
um, I think every year you kind of do without even realizing it. Sometimes I'm like, oh crap, I don't remember what I did. Uh, yeah, I'm like, okay, I'll just kind of make something up. So every year, I think I'm going to remember my routine, right? Because I've done it, so many times. But here's the thing that unless you're in the top 10 or sometimes top 5, you don't get to do your routine. So honestly, I think that this routine I've had for a very long time, but I've only done it twice. And so it's got a good. I think it's good for another few miles.
Which is one thing that I just don't understand because, like, honestly, obviously, I'm not a judge, but then I look at you and I'm like, how is she not placing, at least top five in like almost every show that she does? But that's just me not being a judge, and I don't recognize the minimum stuff that most judges don't recognize. Like, I don't recognize like, oh, her hamstring wasn't as good as it could be, or something like that, or like, oh, her calves don't, and that's just for me. That's just
Yeah, they're looking at things that the average person wouldn't ever dream of looking at, because it's just not part of our psyche. And so, when you get the judges' feedback and you see kind of what they're looking at, and most of the times you can definitely concur. It's like, yep, I concur. Sometimes the placing isn't quite what you imagined it to be, but then you never know what girls you're going to be going up against either.
yep, absolutely. And you have your own gym too as well. How's that been going this last year?
It's again, we call this a transitional period because it is. It's waiting for people to get comfortable coming back. It's trying to entice them back again if they are, found alternatives, if they're out of the habit. Um, and not only that is the future, our vision for the future changes too, because we've had some time to reflect and we realize, hey, maybe we need to go in a different direction, or maybe we need to sort of look at how we can make the club better. And that's been kind of where my mind's at. It's okay. This last couple of years has really sort of helped me look at the club in a different light and go, okay, this is my future, this is my retirement. How do I want to maximize this, and what do I want to do for the next 10 years to make sure that that happens? So
Well, I got a business idea for you. You take a photo when you're at your muscular peak and you send it to the Kansas City Chiefs and you say, "Hey, get your players down here, get them whipped back into shape right now because who knows, by the time I publish this in like 2 to 3 weeks, they'll probably have won their last 3 games, so it won't matter."
I
But
think, there's a Kansas City Chiefs gym pretty close to where I'm at already. So
you walk in there and you say, "Hey guys, come on now. What's the yeah, so that's what I mean. I have a friend who tried that, and then they got or they just knew some athletes connecting, and then they got it with that. But yeah, that's great. And have you found that people are getting easier to come back into the gyms? Because obviously, I mean, with the vaccines out and everything like that, it seems like has things gotten somewhat back to a somewhat of a normal.
definitely, one-on-one um, has really sort of I think got back to normal, if you want to look at it that way. And then we have open gym as well, so people like to come at their own time, and not necessarily be here at peak time. So that part of the gym has sort of, I think, not say improved, but definitely we're back to kind of where we were pre-COVID. The small group classes where people are closer together and in a group situation, that's still being challenging. And so we'll have to look and see what we can do with that. But that's business. It's business.
Well, and we got to talk about the most defining part of you that changes every single time is your hair. Now you've gone full white. So what was the choice behind that? Because last time I think you were purple, and then the first time I had you on, I think you were blue. It's it's like the horse of never. It's like the horse of ever evolving colors for whatever from Wizard of Oz, basically. And now at this
I I know I love color, and so it makes me happy. And so when it comes to stage time, having color in my hair and having it match my suit, it just makes me, you know, it just makes me feel good. And but really the colored hair is really my stage hair. Um, Off stage, when I'm living my normal life, it's curly or straight. So that's kind of, those are my choices. So I was curly yesterday. I'm straight today. I'll probably be curly tonight, depending. I don't know. So we'll see.
just bipolar hair we got here, everyone. But hey, I love it. And
I
yeah,
like to keep people on their toes.
hey,
So
hey, you got to keep the public interested. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, one thing that I've talked with a few competitors too recently, and I don't think we've talked about this really too often, too much. Is that, like, we've talked about in the last ones how, like, yeah, you draw people's attention, stuff like that, when you look the way that you look. But is it hard sometimes to get people to sort of look past the way you look to really get to know the real you? Because, like, you have two really big shoulders that I think kind of really, distract a lot of people when it comes to really meeting the person in between those shoulders, really. But like, have you found that to be difficult, especially with meeting new people, to really sort of get them to look past the way that you look?
Um, I can honestly say no, not difficult at all. Um, because it's, I guess, with my gym, and I would call it a gym, but it's more like a, boutique, fitness studio. Um, you know, I'm obviously the face of my gym, but my reputation tends to precede it. So people get to hear about the real me from someone else. And I spend so much time in my gym and so much time, teaching classes and being around my members, that, my personality hopefully comes out. And um, outside of first impressions, once they meet me and talk to me, then, they realize that the physique is truly just an exterior thing, and definitely doesn't represent my personality necessarily. Now, social media is a whole other ballgame. That's different. We're not talking about that, but we're just talking about in house. I've
Oh
never
yeah,
really had that.
social media, that's a whole new conundrum where I don't even touch that because it's just that's a whole it's an artificial world, everyone. And yeah, but I mean, I'm lucky that I'm glad that you said that because some of the guests I've had on have had that trouble. But for me also, I mean, I could literally be 400 pounds of muscle, and the moment that you hear me open my mouth, everything gets dispelled. Just because I have that personality too, yeah, where it's
Yeah.
just yeah.
You're just this kind of very friendly, warm person. So your size disappears. And so with me, this is my house. This is my house. My gym's my house. And I'm my authentic self when I'm here. So hopefully people get to see that. I think they do. So, you
Which is
know,
why if I ever had to be intimidating, I literally cannot open my mouth. I was like, just don't say anything. Don't say anything. If I'm trying to ever intimidate someone, they're like, as soon as you open your mouth, they're gonna take full advantage of you then because they're gonna be like, oh, this guy's just a poser, really, basically. Then where it's just like he's not really a tough guy. So it's a blessing and a curse at the same time, people. But hey, I deal with it. I deal with it my own way. But I mean, we talk about this every time. But cardio, what's it like for you right now? Please tell me you're not just killing yourself on the machine.
I no, I mean, you know, everyone has a different reference point, right? Because, some people's off season, cardio could be zero, and some people's off season cardio could be, I don't know, 5 hours a week. So it's all dependent on what you're used to, and what you need to do to make yourself, feel the way you want to feel, and to, in whatever, of course, you're doing to achieve your goals, and how you want your off season physique to be. So for me, I try, if I can, to sort of do, I don't know, maybe 50% less cardio than I would, starting my prep season. And so, you're talking about 30 minutes a day at the most. And of course, you're throwing hit in there, maybe 3 or 4 times a week. But I feel comfortable doing 30 minutes a day. And honestly, you know, I used to be a cardio junkie because I used to teach aerobics. And so I would have to figure out a way to balance my 5 hours of classes a day, right, with lifting. Now I don't. And I love that.
How did you do that back in the day though too? Because like me after a long hard day of work, I almost can never go work out really.
Yeah. Uh, you know, you get so used to
Were you just injecting yourself with like pure adrenaline afterwards basically then and just being like, "Hey, let's go?"
I don't I think just like anything else, just like, being a massage therapist, right? I think, how am I gonna do 8 hours of massages a day? Um, I don't know if I don't, obviously didn't start with 8 hours a day. Um, Gradually, as my clientele grew and my schedule increased, I adapted to the hours that I was doing. So the same with teaching classes and aerobics, I probably started with an hour a day, and then you add another hour to that day, and then you add another, and then another. And so each time you add, you're adapting to that. And so, in between, you're hanging out at the gym, so you go lift, because what else is there to do if you're at a gym? So it becomes a lifestyle. It becomes just what you do. Your body just, gets accustomed to it. And so,
Wait, I
yeah,
totally forgot. You do massage therapy as well?
Yes, yes,
Okay,
yes.
so how, like, have you had any moments there where obviously since you're bigger and stronger than the general probably massage person, have you had any moments where you've underestimated your strength or just like being like, because like I've had moments like that as well. Like even when I was playing basketball, there's moments where like I'd be going through with a ball with someone else and then I'd accidentally like throw them like a foot across the court, then basically like that, just trying to do. Were there? Please tell me that you've at least had some of those moments where you're like, a person's like, oh my god, you're like breaking my back, really?
Um, I I can't say that I have, only because my clientele is really, really diverse. And so I have to be extremely skilled at being intuitive. If I have an 80-year-old on my bed,
Oh, yeah.
I have to know how to adapt.
You're not giving them a pile driver, basically.
Exactly. So you have to develop those skills and that intuition. And so you have someone on your, on the bed who is, 110 pounds and just skin and bone. And you have someone who's, a lifter and he or she is a heavyweight. You gotta know that. You've got to know how to approach that body type. And you have someone who's maybe you know, a little more sensitive, or in chronic pain, and you have to be really sensitive to that and understand that people's pain thresholds are very different. So no, as a massage therapist, you learn that, and if you don't, you shouldn't be a massage therapist.
Which is why if I ever did that profession, I would do just the top tier weightlifters because you can beat the crap out of them basically. Then they
Well,
won't feel a thing.
thank
Most of
you.
them. I have seen some of those videos of
Some
people.
of them
I have
are
seen some of
not
those with like the
right.
high level male bodybuilders getting those massages, and they're like freaking out and crying basically. Then and I'm just like, okay, yeah.
Yeah, they are definitely. We cannot assume that because they're big and muscular that they can handle it either. So
I'll say it helps, but it doesn't guarantee it. It doesn't
doesn't
guarantee
guarantee.
that it's
Doesn't
good.
guarantee.
But hey, at least you get like a forearm workout and stuff like that done. You don't even have to work out. Please don't tell me you're like training ever like arms after doing a massage day because like that just for me that just brings back old memories of pitching and then having to work out like the next day when your forearms are just sore as hell.
I mean, you learn to be a little bit more strategic when you've got a heavy massage day, especially if you're doing hour and a half and 2 hours. So you do try and sort of place your workouts on certain days, depending on the load and what you're doing. True, absolutely. But when you are prepping and when you have a schedule and when you have a certain regime, I mean, you got to do what you got to do. So, if you've got a heavy day on in the massage room and it's arm day, guess what? Suck it up, buttercup. Got to do it. Hmm.
Well, and I mean, like, do they teach last masseuse question because I've always found that profession to be amazing. Like, anytime I've gone on blind dates, I literally like as I found out the girls in masseuse and I was like, okay, you got to make this work, Ryan. You got to make this free massages your life basically. Then, like, are you kidding me? That's like you don't even have to give me a present for my birthday. Then just give me a back. But like when they're teaching you because like any normal person does a massage, 5 minutes in they get tired really like their hands get tired. Is there anything that they teach you how you're able to do that for an hour and a half because that seems almost like an impossible job for at least a novice person.
Body mechanics. So you definitely learn how to uh, sort of center your weight and to offload on your hands are what get tired, especially your thumbs. And so a lot of massage therapists, their careers are cut short because they develop tendonitis and arthritis in their hands. So they teach you techniques that can take pressure off your thumbs. And so you can use, the heel of your hand, your knuckles, obviously, your forearm and your elbow, and the way that place your body and position your body will also take stress off your lower back and so on and so on. But you still have to, I feel, I mean, I think if a massage therapist is not in good condition, I don't think their career will last long. I think it's too hard on the body unless you maybe are doing spa massages and so there's not a lot of pressure involved, or you get to sit down a lot.
Yeah, let me do those massages where you just put like rocks on the people's back and like
Right,
poke those
up
little things.
down,
Yeah, just do that, yeah.
or maybe
Oh
reflexology
yeah,
or facial
that's
massage
real
or
hard
scalp
carrying that. Yeah,
massage.
that's real hard lifting that half-pound stone. That's really gonna really, but like I mean, I give my dog a belly rub for like 5 minutes, and then afterwards, I'm like, God, like
And you're
what,
done.
what's going on? Yeah, like yeah. So I see people do that, and I was like, yeah, that is just incredible. But I mean, two of the questions that I ask every single time that I have a guest on, and I'm gonna ask this. I mean, I've asked you this already twice before, but I'm gonna ask every single guest every time that I have them on, just because it might change. If you could change one thing about, the sport of bodybuilding and everyone would go along with it, what would be one thing that you'd like to see changed?
I think it's the same thing that I said last time. I think having more of a structured judging system, or possibly maybe more of a transparent judging system, where maybe the scores, are immediately available on a screen. You know what I mean? Just like ice skating
Yeah.
or gymnastics. They're right there. There's no chance for
And
anything.
you see the person that scored each of them. Yeah, like you don't you yeah,
Absolutely.
yeah.
Absolutely. So I would love that. And I would love there to be more of a defined, to try and define the divisions better, maybe, or maybe hold to those definitions, and to those protocols a little bit more. I think the standards just change and flow and ebb and flow with East Coast, West Coast. Different judges, head judges have their preferences, and I understand that we're human and we have our likes and dislikes. But that standardization, I think, would be very helpful for us as competitors, to be able to trust that the direction that we are heading in is indeed the right one, for not just the last competition, but for the competition that we are the competition that we're training for, right? So yeah.
I couldn't agree with you more myself. And I caught myself at the end here because I was gonna ask the last one and then wrap it up, but I totally forgot you to ask this question because this has been like a unique year when it comes to bodybuilding, where there's been so much more attention to, some of the extremes that people go to in the sport, especially with diuretics, with like some of the deaths that have been happening in the sport. What has been your reaction to all that? Because I mean, obviously being a competitor, you know all about that stuff, because I mean, it's just you're not gonna compete in the sport and not know about some of the extremes that people go to. But what has been your reaction like this? Because it seems like the general public has become vastly more aware of, what entails in this sport, really.
Yeah, I think obviously it's extremely sad to have had the deaths that we've had, and that it takes that that kind of tragedy to open people's eyes. Of course, I mean, that's not what we want. But if we've got to find the positive in it, I think it's important that the audience knows sort of what we go through, and what we are tempted to go through. I, being my own coach, have a whole nother sort of perspective, because I don't have a coach telling me what to do. I don't have a coach giving recommendations. I'm doing my own diligent. I'm doing my own research. I'm obviously my own field experiment. So my perspective is different. But I think the relationship between coach and competitor is so crucial in this sport. And I think that competitors need to be more proactive and more invested in their health, and they need to be able to ask questions and feel okay about that. And I think coaches need to be as knowledgeable as possible and be as transparent as possible as well. So it's a symbiotic relationship there. And then the audience and the general public need to be aware of what goes on, and I think that will either give them a greater appreciation of the sport, or not. And
I totally agree, because yeah, I've gotten even messages from some fans being like, this year has been really eye opening to me about, like how extreme this sport can get. And it sort of just makes you wonder, like, like what's going on here. And for me, it's like I already knew about all that stuff going on, because I even knew about that before I started this podcast, just because I had friends that were and stuff. But it's just, yeah, it's just shocking. And for me, I mean, the best piece of advice I tell everyone is do your research before you start anything. I mean, it's like so many people want to, have that bodybuilder look, but they don't realize what entails really in this lifestyle. But I mean, on top of that as well, you posted a photo a while back on your Instagram about like your transformation of when you first started, before you even first started working out, as to where you are now. What is that like for you now to go back and look at that and be like, how the hell did I transform really from that person on the left to the person on the right? And now, granted, the person on the left was totally fine in and of itself, but I mean, it's like it's such a strong difference, really. I mean, it's like such a unique transformation. Do you ever look back on that and just realize, like, how have I done this?
Yeah, I mean, at that age, I would never. I don't think at that age I
I mean,
had
it's like I
any.
want to see you at some high school reunions now, where people are just like, is that her? What the?
Yeah, I mean that people, looking back and I was fine with fine with myself. I mean, we all have our issues with our bodies, but outside of that, I I enjoyed working out. I liked being strong, and I also enjoyed sort of the idea of women being as strong and as fast as the guys. I always thought that always appealed to me, that as a female we shouldn't be limited, by our sex, so to speak. So I that was always my mentality. I just really never thought that I would be the one to prove that point, or to, and so it's really awesome to be in that position now, to say that we can do anything we set our minds to. Um, uh, but I'm also the same person that I was that. I mean, see, yes, I'm how many years older? I won't even tell you years older, but I am, the Jonquil of then and the Jonquil of now. My sense of self. It's the same, even though my exterior is different. I am still the same person. But I'm happy with the transition. My mother is not, but I'm happy with
I
my.
was gonna say, I hope you're happy with the transitions, because if you're telling me like, oh, I hate this, I just keep doing it just because I just keep doing it because I love to torture
Can't believe I'm
myself.
doing this to myself.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I can't
No,
believe
yeah.
it. Yeah, no, no, but yeah,
Yeah,
hey,
my mother would prefer me to go back to her, to the daughter she once knew. She still loves me. She still loves me.
I don't
But
get that because you have a free furniture mover for life. Then basically, then with your job, with you now, basically, like, so, mom, you got to at least, there's some benefits to this lifestyle. Then at least, yeah, you have a can of pickles that need to be open. Just give her a call.
I'm the girl. That's right. Just give it to me. Yeah.
Absolutely. And lastly, when we do talk to you a year from today, where would you like to be at just in your bodybuilding? Where would you like to be at just in your overall life? What are some goals that you'd like to have achieved?
So let's see. Um, I think bodybuilding wise, obviously, this sounds so cliche, and it is, but it's just true. We want to get on stage and be our best selves. We want to, continue to be better and get better, and be competitive. And I would love to obviously, break the top five. That'd be awesome. So sure, that I'll take that. And business wise, um, I think I hope that I'll be able to take Jake Hughes to the next level, and maybe sort of even either it's going to be one of two things. It's going to be expand and get bigger, or it's going to be get smaller and consolidate. So one of those two things will happen um, within the year. So I should be in a position to know that by then. How's that? Yep. So
Well, I will say this. I do have a friend that lives in Kansas City, and I was planning on visiting him probably sometime next year. So if I do come, I will definitely let you know, and I'll maybe film a workout there or something like that with me, myself, where we can see my calves in action and just, get embarrassed and just ridiculous. But yeah, and what's the address of your place in case anyone's looking to go, and I'll leave a link to it down below too.
yeah, yeah. So it's 4563 Indian Creek Parkway, Overland Park, Kansas, 66207. So absolutely, please come and visit, or check us out on the web. We've got a great website. But yeah, no, I love this place. This is my home away from home. It's my second family. So I plan on being around forever. We'll just have to kind of figure out, um, you know, the next the next phase of the journey. The next stage, and whatever that will be, it will be a good one. It's not going to be a bad one, just possibly different. So yeah.
Absolutely. And again, you guys, we cannot thank her enough for coming back on and sharing her story. And like always, I'll leave a link to her Instagram and all of her stuff down below where, everyone, like I tell this every time, buyer beware, you will get inspired to get off that couch and stop eating those Twinkies. But again, thank you so much for coming on again. I really appreciate it.
Well, I love being on, and thank you so much for providing a platform for us to share our stories. So we really appreciate you.
And I appreciate that. I mean, especially with John Meadows passing, I heard everyone to talk about how nice and how great he was. That's my goal, is to be like the bodybuilding podcast John Meadows, where everyone just feels like they can come on and share. And yeah, I just really appreciate it. I mean, it's like I don't do this for money, because if I did, I wouldn't still be at my parents' house really then. But yeah, I do it because of my love of just talking to people and stuff like that, and I really appreciate that. But again, you guys, thank you so much for listening, and thank you to our guests for coming on. And this is Ryan Johnson, DD on the Spot, signing off. Have a great day, everyone.